you know what? Since I have the chance here, let's talk about rumors about the next draft coming after SummerSlam, which I have decided to map out what I would do following the brand split. Now, keep in mind, I worked on this 2 days in a row here, so after seeing what I've seen on SmackDown, not all these may be the same thing, but let's kind of take into an address of the Raw and SmackDown division as it is right now, and then get into what I would do for the next brand split, what I would change, and stuff like that. Alright, so Raw and SmackDown. Here's what I think of the draft at the moment. I think it's good that you're doing the draft. I'm sincerely a big supporter of it. However, there's a lot of chinks in the armor, so to speak, that I need to address here, that I think should be addressed, and I'm surprised other podcasts haven't addressed by this. First thing that's kind of bothering me about the brand split, and I get maybe why some people wouldn't bring this up, is because of kayfabe being dead, but it could still be held up, you know, suspension of disbelief. You gotta go as close to 100% with suspension of disbelief, especially in any company, in my opinion. But anyway, one thing they should not be doing, if they're two different brands, they should not be doing cross promotions here. Raw should not be advertising a SmackDown pay-per-view and vice versa. SmackDown should not be advertising a Raw pay-per-view unless it's for cross-promotion, unless it's a inter-promotional pay-per-view, like a SummerSlam or a Survivor Series or WrestleMania. You get the picture. So, I just noticed that's been kind of bothering me. And listen, if they're gonna advertise, which, you know what, I get why they would do it, because, you got to make your money, but if they're going to do it anyway, mudsling a little. Have the commentators say, like, oh, wow, the inferior brand is having this pay-per-view with an inferior champion or whatever, just have a little mudsling here and there. Throw some shade here. It wouldn't kill JBL to say one mean thing about a particular match that's happening on a Raw pay-per-view, That's good storytelling. That's good suspension of disbelief right there. I think that should be into more play here. Which brings me kind of into my own thing, my own next point here is I want to see a little more brand rivalry. We really only see this once a year with Survivor Series, or we only have seen this once a year with Survivor Series, I should say, because, the brand split's only been around 1 year still, and it's not long after that year has passed. I mean, it was July 19th they started. It's August 1st of 2017, so we're a year and not even a month ahead. So, anyway, I think for the second year we should see a little more brand rivalry, a little more mudslinging here and there. The little stuff counts here. So, maybe have the superstars, talk trash about the Raw superstars every now and again. Show a little more brand loyalty. Maybe do a little more interpromotional matches. That's what I was hoping we would get following the brand split. I was hoping we would get like an interpromotional match between Charlotte and Bliss or something like that. Just as an example. So that was kind of bothering me that they haven't done that. Also, more trades. I think more trades are key here. More contracts, quote unquote, running out or whatever, what have you. More signed deals. Stuff like that. Stuff that, guys could sink their teeth into. As a viewer, we could sink our teeth into watching, crazy stuff like that happening. It's fun. It's fun to see trades and stuff like that. It keeps the excitement going. Which also brings me to another point, is more explanations. Better explanations. more and better explanations. For example, why does Jason Jordan get to go on Raw just because he's Kurt Angle's son? What? Nothing was explained on that. Or why is John Cena a free agent now? You know, some of these things have not been explained, and, you know, I think on a business side of things, some of these things need to be explained. Now, segueing into the Cena free agent thing, here's another thing I would not do. No free agents. Honestly, this concept is ridiculous. Like, if you're trying to compete, think about this. In storyline, if you're Raw and SmackDown, you're trying to compete, why would you allow for a top star to go to the other brand? For any circumstance, why would you not fight for your superstar to be on your brand? That doesn't make any sense at all, you know? And that goes back to the whole thing of explanations. They did not bother to explain why John Cena is a free agent for any reason. You know, so I would not have John Cena be a free agent. Or, you know, I would not have anybody be a free agent for that matter. Hell, I would understand, you know, looking back at it, there was the Heath Slater thing going on, but he was not doing anything. His storyline, his case made sense because they just neglected the guy. Nobody picked him up at first because he was not a big name. That made sense. This does not make sense. Why would SmackDown allow for a talent like Cena? Or hell, why would Raw allow for a talent like Lesnar? Or why would SmackDown allow for a talent like Shinsuke Nakamura? Or why would Rollins allow for a talent like Seth Rollins to, you know, you get what I'm saying here? Why would you allow any one of your top names? Hell, why would you allow any one of your superstars, let alone top names, be a free agent? It just doesn't make any sense to me. So anyway, that's kind of my position on the state of the WWE brand split here. Now let's get into what I would change at the next draft. Who I decided to move over here and there. And listen, there's a lot of rumors, as you know. Both superstars are gonna go back and forth to Raw and SmackDown. Of course, that's expected. But there's also rumors that main roster talent will possibly be getting shifted down to NXT developmental. And of course, we're gonna get our NXT call-ups, which is what I appreciate here. So here's what I allowed. All right, for the transitions over to different brands here. I picked only 6 people to move to each brand because I thought that's kind of a reasonable number, 6. So, all right, so my first pick would be Kevin Owens going over to Raw, and this is who's going over to Raw. Kevin Owens would be my first pick because honestly, I don't really think he's doing much on SmackDown. Like, he's not really as entertaining on SmackDown. He's not really, you know, hell, his promos aren't as great. I think Raw needs him a lot more than SmackDown does. So, next we got Carmella, and I think she could be used to reunite with Cass, and they could be a really cool duo together. You know, Carmella could take on a managerial role as well as a competitor role. I think she has real potential to shine with that. Next, we got Randy Orton, who doesn't really do much on SmackDown. Honestly, he doesn't do much for me either as a fan. I think he could strive really well with the blood on the Raw roster. I could see him working a program with Ambrose. Should either of them turn heel, I could see him working a program with whoever and still put on a pretty decent show. Hell, him versus Kevin Owens, I wouldn't mind that too much. So next we got Baron Corbin, because I think he needs new blood as well. I think we've seen Baron Corbin face off with every member of the SmackDown roster at this point, minus the tag team division. He should get some new feuds here. So I would totally go with Baron Corbin going over to Raw. So next we got Eric Rowan, who's not really doing anything on SmackDown. So my hope is that moving him over to Raw would kind of give him something to do with Bray Wyatt or Braun Strowman, something. Because I don't want to give up on the Eric Rowan character. I know not a lot of people are a fan of his, but I feel like you could work. Everybody has a hidden talent somewhere. You just got to find it. You just got to find lightning in a bottle, something that will get Eric Rowan over. And maybe it wasn't the move to the SmackDown brand that should have helped, that has helped him. Maybe he needs to go over to Raw and figure something out there. Maybe the answer for him is somewhere in there. So next, after we got Eric Rowan, Baron Corbin, Randy Orton, Carmella, and Kevin Owens, we also got, last but not least, James Ellsworth. So this would kind of segue into the Cass Carmella love triangle. I think that would be an appropriate way to kind of end it. I could see James Ellsworth being like this over-dependent guy who Carmella's frankly sick of and all this stuff, or you could kind of play the Carmella clueless role who didn't know James Ellsworth had a crush on him or whatever, and then all of a sudden Carmella breaks the news to him that unrealizingly breaks the news to James Ellsworth that Big Cass is her boyfriend and all that stuff. Like you could really make that stuff work. I would be up for that. So yeah, after that you'd kind of see James Ellsworth kind of get lost, like not in the shuffle per se, but kind of look for a friend now. He's realized how badly he's been acting, all this stuff, and then kind of transition to him back into a sympathetic baby face from there. I would like to see a little aftermath of that and see how well we could work James Ellsworth in there. What you would do with him after that is a tough question indeed. I don't know what you would do after that, but my hope is that WWE would have an answer for that. All right, so let's get into SmackDown here. So who would I move over to SmackDown? Now, I know I said this name to pair him off with Eric Rowan, but he needs to go to SmackDown, and that is Bray Wyatt. Why they moved him over to Raw in the first place was really a head-scratching decision. I don't understand it myself. I think Bray Wyatt has all the potential in the world on SmackDown. He was doing just fine on SmackDown. He did not really need any changes. So it's just, I don't know. And he's just kind of floundering here because, hell, since his feud with Balor, or before his feud with Balor, he hasn't really done much. I mean, recently he just beat up Rollins, and that's been about as close as he's gotten to success. He's lost the Great Balls of Fire match. He's lost quite a bit here and there, and frankly, the guy's just not cutting it on the Raw brand. So, factor that in. SmackDown needs a top heel. I think Bray Wyatt could be a top heel if they just have a little consistency with the guy and just let him win more feuds. I think he could be there, but it's all in what you do with him. So next we got Mickie James, and the reason for her is simple. Nothing is being done with her. She needs her feuds to get going, and the fact that she has had something with Bliss since the Superstar Shakeup, as they call it, or the draft, whatever you want to call it. Since then, nothing was capitalized on, which kind of it frustrates me. So my hope is that Mickie James gets more TV time on the SmackDown brand, and I know she will, because why would they not utilize her? And SmackDown's more than smart enough to utilize all their talents And I know I've criticized them for not utilizing all their talents altogether, but you know what? Instead of using all, I should say a majority. So, and this episode of SmackDown, by the way, was a good way to showcase some talent, by the way. All right, so, again, Mickie James needs something to get going, and I feel like SmackDown could give it to her. Next, we got Emma, who also needs something to get going, and SmackDown has the key for her. SmackDown has been kind of the rejuvenation show for a lot of guys. For example, New Day's absence from 3-week absence really helped them rejuvenate, and then their promos have gotten a lot better lately. It's not entirely just slapstick humor. They've actually delivered some really witty and actually really deliverable promos that I really liked hearing them go off of. And it comes off a little less scripted, so definitely I can definitely see that working for Emma. And I would love to see her go at it with Becky and Mickie and Naomi and Charlotte and maybe Natty as well. So I think Emma could definitely benefit. Next, I would put is Seth Rollins. I think he, much like Baron Corbin, kind of needs new blood. He needs a new variety to work with, and you turn him heel or face or whatever. You could have him get into it with a lot of guys like AJ Styles, Nakamura, hell, Dolph Ziggler, who also needs some serious showcase time. You could do a lot with Dolph Ziggler and Ziggler and Rollins. They've had a few good matches there. I think there's something there. There's Rollins and Styles, Rollins and Nakamura. Again, those would be some great matches. Next is Cesaro. I think this Sheamus Cesaro tag has kind of I don't want to say run its course, because they still entertain me, but I think it's time for Cesaro to be back to a singles competitor again. I think you turn him back to a babyface, and you have him on SmackDown. You have him working with Sammy. You give them a similar program to what they did in NXT. You could have a lot of work with Cesaro. You could really be doing something good for Cesaro here. Next, we got Rich Swann here, who hasn't really done much on Raw, and it's not really a knock on Swann. A lot of the cruiserweights don't really do much, but I think Swann you could capitalize well with. He has the charisma. He seems like he'll shine on SmackDown. He can obviously still do the 205 Live. After all, that's on Tuesdays, by the way. You could have him work a match on SmackDown one week, work a match on 205 Live the next. I think that could benefit Swann really well. He has the tools, and I think SmackDown has the creativity to really complement his talent and charisma. All right, so next we got the section of who gets sent down to NXT. And my one and only real rule in this is no former champions. So this idea of calling or demoting Dolph Ziggler down to NXT, which is something I've been hearing a lot of, I would not do it. I would not demote Dolph Ziggler to NXT. And yes, it's a demotion because, while NXT is better than the main roster in terms of storylines, in my opinion, and a majority of others watching this podcast, it is a demotion because Ziggler has to perform for a less audience, therefore he gets less money. So I would not demote Ziggler like that. If you do not know what to do with him on the main roster and he's a former champion, I think that is the creative's fault. They're a creative team. They're supposed to know what to do with a guy like that. And especially since he's at least, a 10-year veteran now, they should know what to do with him. You should not have to rely on the creative team of NXT all the time. It's like, how pathetic is that? Their developmental brand is holding the main roster's hands at this point. It's like, no. You're the creative team. You got to figure something out. So, if you're a former champion, and forget former world champion, if you're a former champion, you're disqualified from this. So, let's get down the list here. First one up, Dana Brooke. She could seriously benefit because, first off, let me address the obvious elephant in the room. She was called up too early. That's been said by multiple podcasts, including myself. But the thing I think that could benefit her the most is her in-ring work. I feel like she could get a lot of mat time down in NXT. She could really work her in-ring work and really take the time to develop down there. Because after all, it's a developmental brand. You gotta remember that. Just send her back down, give her some time to hone her mic skills and in-ring work, and actually, yeah, she needs to also find her character, which was also another thing that was in my notes of this. She needs to find her character, and badly. I think Dana Brooke does a really good job with her acting skills. But thing is, her character is what's kind of lacking here. And, when you don't really have that character, you can't really shine all that much. And Dana Brooke, who's kind of lost on Raw right now, could really benefit off of finding her character down in NXT. And if you give her more time to work with, let's say like a Triple H or a Sarah, or Sarah Amato to help her in ring wise, and Triple H to work with her backstage, character wise, however you could do it, however you do it down in NXT or Florida. Please, let's kind of correct what's affecting Dana Brooke at the moment. So after her, who would be next is the Ascension. Now, not only are they not doing anything on the main roster, but these guys could also really take another time to thrive off of the NXT division, because the NXT division also needs another tag team, to ascend. And yes, for those who are wondering what exactly I'm insinuating here, yes, I am insinuating that the Ascension will thrive. Because, first off, the Ascension were incredibly successful in NXT. They were very over, and that much was very, very well proven by their return in 2015 or 16, whichever year that was. They clearly have the skills to get over. And here's the thing. NXT has a much bigger audience than it did 2 years ago. So if they manage to get over with enough screen time that they could have, I think their second NXT call-ups could benefit themselves much like it did for Emma. And even though Emma's kind of playing a different character, she was also very well over in NXT as good Emma, or how should I describe Emma? The fun-loving, bubbly Emma that didn't necessarily get over on the main roster. So, yeah, NXT does have a bigger audience, a bigger audience, but it's a different audience than what we get on the main roster. Yes, that much is true, but there's still a portion of the audience who watch the main roster and NXT as well. So keep that in mind. I think they will benefit greatly. So next we got Aiden English. Now, keep in mind I did write this before SmackDown, so I'm not entirely 100% on Aiden being a necessity to go down to NXT again, because his character is pretty much the same thing as what we got as what we're getting, I should say. So, he's singing to the ramp, he's doing most of the same things. He's the artiste before the vaudevillains. Now all we need is kind of the hat and the bullhorn, or it wasn't a bullhorn. What was it? Maybe it was a bullhorn. I can't remember. But anyway, it was that's basically what we get, and you kind of give him the sunglasses. I think you have a lot of potential to work with Aiden on the main roster, and especially because he's gotten some really nice screen time as of late. So yeah, I'm not entirely 100% on Aiden English being a necessity, but I think it can't hurt to send him down to NXT. Is my point. Next, we got Mustafa Ali, and I can see him really thriving well there. He's, he gives the presence that he has a really good character in mind. He seems to have some really good charisma. I don't watch 205 Live, so I can't really judge it, but from what I've seen, he gives good facial expressions. He gives good psychology. I've seen him work in the ring with Neville a few times. They've had some great matches. So I think Mustafa Ali can really kill it if you give him that kind of time to showcase who he is. So next we got Summer Rae. And lastly, Summer Rae, who has done nothing since the brand split, period. And I think the closest we saw her was like the week after the brand split was lose to Sasha Banks. And I'm not even so sure that was after the brand split or before the brand split. But, when you're doing just that, it's not really much. And she hasn't been active since then. I know she was on injury for a short period of time, or a long period of time. And recently she got cleared. Just recently, I would say, actually, it's not so recent anymore. It's been a couple of months. I would say like 3 or 4 months, but still, some time has passed, is my point, and they're still not doing anything with her. I know she's doing photo shoots and that, but I think there's more to be done with her. She was golden as, the BFFs when she was part of that faction with Charlotte and Sasha, and I was really hoping after the next superstar shakeup that we would get a Sasha heel turn, and then we would get Charlotte, Sasha, and Summer Rae, and Summer Rae could return, and that would have been really cool to see. Hell, even if it was for a short-term deal, at least Summer Rae would be getting something. And I believe if you're going to be on the roster, you got to be doing something. So, kind of a disappointment to me, a wasted opportunity. So, I think Summer Rae going down to NXT would be kind of best for her. And, she could showcase herself really well. She can help out with the younger talent, work some storylines here and there. I think Summer Rae could really work with that. Alright, so last but not least, Sin Cara. Now, to my knowledge, he's not injured, but he also is inactive. He has done nothing, not even since being moved over to SmackDown. And that really sucks. So, I think we need to see Summer Rae and Sin Cara ASAP, because I've been wondering, where the hell is Summer Rae? And Sin Cara, I like the guy. I like it that it's Hunico. I think he's a hell of a performer, but we need to see him. All right, so all that has been given. Now let's talk about who gets called up. Alright, so Bobby Roode goes to Raw, and I think he could be a really good top heel. And I realize with the brand split that I've given, the draft choices that I'm making here, I realize this would make Raw a really heel heavy show. Maybe you should turn some guy's face. I'm sure Raw could figure something out like that. Alright, so next we got Asuka, who would be on SmackDown. I would love to see her versus Becky Lynch at WrestleMania. that much has been given, and that's what I want to see. Asuka versus Becky Lynch at WrestleMania. Book it. Next, we got Cassius Ohno going to SmackDown. I like Cassius. He's got a good set of names to work with. I would be interested in seeing a babyface versus babyface in Cassius Ohno versus Sami Zayn. I would like to see Cassius Ohno versus Mike Kanellis. I would like to see Cassius Ohno versus Seth Rollins versus Nakamura versus Dolph Ziggler. So you got a plethora of names here. Next we got Buddy Murphy, and I think the reason is because he has a good look. He seems to have a good ring presence here, and I think the fact that he's not really showcased that much, even on NXT, he's working the live events. He could benefit here, and I'm not 100% on that. And the reason is because I picked him mostly out of having a hard time picking between who to call up, because a lot of these guys, I went down the line here and I said, well, I don't really want to see them on the main roster yet for various reasons. For example, I looked up down the NXT roster here. So I would not call up Aleister Black. I think he still has a nice heel role to follow in before he gets called up. I would not call up Andrade Almas because he's just awesome. And look, I think it would be too early for the guy. I think he needs, a few more big feuds before he gets called up. Drew McIntyre would be too early for him as well. Him leaving NXT this early would not really make sense. Hideo Itami, I think there's still a lot for him to do. There's still a lot for him to work with. He could work with Johnny Gargano. Tell me you would not want to see Johnny Gargano versus Hideo Itami. Or maybe if you turn him face again, you could have him work with Tommaso Ciampa. Which, by the way, that pretty much spoils who I would not call up. No, I would not call up Johnny Gargano. No, I would not call up Tommaso Ciampa, as they also have some good singles work to do. So, No Way Jose, I just don't see him getting over on the main roster unless you book him on SmackDown, but even then, that's kind of a stretch. Next, you got Roderick Strong. Would not call him up. Too early for the Velveteen Dream. Shane Thorne and Nick Miller. Well, Shane Thorne's injured, but hell, they kind of need to stay there for the lack of the NXT Tag Team division. And that's pretty much most of the main roster. I would not call up any of Sanity. So, I had to pick a name out of desperation here because, look, I really do want to see Buddy Murphy on again, and I think he has a good look. His in-ring work does really well. I would like to see what he could do against a Randy Orton. No, I wouldn't even say Randy Orton actually, because I'm not a big fan of Randy Orton's work, but I feel like Buddy Murphy could get a good match out of him. Maybe he could get a good match out of Sami Zayn. He could get a good match out of him and Rollins. I could see working really well together. And I've seen that on live events. He's playing a different gimmick, which could be something right there in and of itself. I'm surprised they haven't tried to portray that new look, that new repackage of Buddy Murphy on NXT TV. But I think he could benefit off of that. And okay, so enough going on about Buddy Murphy. The next one was kind of a random draw pick was Ruby Riott. I was looking down the women's roster and I felt I had a hard time really thinking any of these girls. I don't want to say ready, but I think other than Asuka, it was really hard to pick any of these other girls to be not ready, but I guess established for main roster call-ups. Billie Kay and Peyton Royce, they're a hell of a duo, but if they go to Raw, I feel like they would end up in the same position as Emma. Ember Moon, I think she should she should kind of be the face of the women's division. Liv Morgan, too early. Aaliyah, too early. Nikki Cross, again, they should kind of get caught up with Sanity. Daria Baronato, I think it would also be a little too early, so that would just kind of leave Ruby Riott to be Ruby Riott and Asuka to kind of be the sore thumbs of everything here. So, after that, I would have to pick a sixth member, and my sixth member would be, even though I did not pick him initially, I would say Aleister Black, because I need a sixth pick and I need to kind of commit to this, so yeah. And I think you call up Aleister Black, you have him work on Raw, because let's face it, it's a heel heavy show, so you want to have a few faces in there to compete with, and Aleister Black could be that guy right there. And I think Aleister Black versus Baron Corbin could be a hell of a program. So now the question is, who does this benefit? Who do these moves benefit? So I'm going to look down the guys here, and I didn't write down who these would benefit. So let's kind of look down the list here. So everyone I called up, everyone I said going down NXT, that's number one. So Dana Brooke, Ascension, Aiden English, Mustafa, Summer Rae, and Sin Cara. I think they would all benefit from going down to NXT. So who would benefit here? I think on the SmackDown brand, I think that Dolph Ziggler would be a name that would benefit, because now you kind of they're losing Kevin Owens as their top heel. They're losing a few heels here and there. You need another top heel to shine here, and I think Dolph Ziggler is the best candidate to be the next top heel, because he has the mic skills, and I've criticized his mic skills before, but I think he does have good enough mic skills to pass as a top heel. His in-ring work is 100% solid, and he's just overall got a good character that people like, and I think that should resonate with him, main eventing more often than not. So after him, who would benefit? I think Bobby Roode could benefit off of the showcasing. Ruby Riott could also benefit. Buddy Murphy could finally get some time in the light, hopefully. I think Cesaro could benefit. Emma as well, definitely. So after that, now I think Dolph Ziggler was the only indirect benefit that I mentioned here, but I would say guys who aren't necessarily showcased on NXT TV, who are working the TV events. So guys like Cesar Bononi would benefit, because they would get some time. The Ely brothers, even though I'm not really too big of fans of them at the moment, I think they could benefit because they're not being showcased that much. Tien Bang, who made headline news, and they were their the first Chinese wrestler. He could also benefit, because now the roster's shortened. You could give him time to shine. Steve Cutler, who I think kind of needs some showcasing anyway. He could also benefit. Tino Sabatelli and Riddick Moss. Since the NXT division is kind of low right now, they could also benefit. You know, you got a plethora of names here on the NXT roster that could benefit. So afterwards, you could also you could see them indirectly benefiting. Ty Dillinger, I think, would benefit because well, there's less guys on the SmackDown brand. I think he could work in well with Cassius Ohno. You know, you could team Ty Dillinger up with Breezango. They could be kind of a trio right there. I think you team him up with Sami Zayn, and you know you have a tag team division in there somewhere. And yeah. So Sami Zayn would also benefit from working with Cesaro, because that's what I want him to do. The SmackDown Women's division would also flourish because, you know, you only have 6 girls, so you need a few more names to kind of shake it up, add some variety, add some interest, and you add 2 more names. You have 8 girls, which I get it. It's still a small number, but it's still a better number than 6, and you have a bigger variety of options to work with. Again, I've listed Emma versus the list of girls, but you also have the possibility of Natalya versus Mickie James, which is a match we haven't seen, and I would love to see Natalya versus Mickie James. We've seen Mickie James versus Becky, but I would not mind seeing it again. There's Lana versus Lana, who could... Oh, okay, there's another name who could indirectly benefit. Lana could benefit off of working with Mickie James, and she could, I guess, kind of like in a way kind of give her in-ring performance some more confidence. Anyway, she gets some good matches out of her, in the same way that, you know, AJ Styles can get a good match out of pretty much anybody, or that's so the saying goes. I think Mickie James is in that same camp where she can get a pretty good match out of anybody if you give her enough time. So yeah, I think Lana's another name that could benefit. So yeah, that's pretty much what I would do with the next draft, which at this current point is my opinion. And I mean, it might not change, it might, but who knows. I think these are the smartest ways to go. So yeah. Alright, so what's going on, guys? Thank you for watching that clip. This was certainly a good podcast, and I'm sure you as the viewer wants to see the whole thing. So if you're wondering where you can catch this whole thing, depending on where you're watching this video from, well, there will be a link provided in the description below, and I'm telling you right now, it is definitely not a must-miss podcast. Check it out. And also, if you're wondering where to get this music that is being played in the background, that is the AWSM Medium guy. He is on YouTube. I will provide a link in the description below so you can check out his channel and all of his stuff. He also provided the music for my intro, which is why I give credit to him during the beginning of my podcasts. And besides that, you know, be sure to check him out. Tell him I said hi, and hopefully he can get that Becky Lynch track finished by now. I've been waiting on that for a little while. But in all seriousness, be sure to check out the full version in the link in the description below. Again, thank you for watching this little clip, and good night, guys.